Hi, everyone. How are you this evening? Good to see you here. Hi, Arlene. How's everyone? Is everyone totally exhausted today or just some of us? How are you? Nice to see everybody here this evening. So, how was the day? Yeah, hello. So, I thought today, good day to look at the ceiling. The ceiling. Yeah. That's what the ceiling may have looked like before it became the ceiling, the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Thought that was an interesting rendition of it, right? Drawing of it, and how much. Well, we'll just see how much it changes. It's really stunning. So we're going to read quite a bit about it too. Yeah, from this, this is already a beautiful ceiling. There's already phenomenal architecture here, right? And then to this, it's really stunning. So let's read a little bit about that. So let me start. For anybody who hasn't seen the Sistine Chapel ceiling, that this will be a lot of fun. For those of us who have seen it, it's really nice to remember that we used to travel. Yeah, we used to go around the world and see wonderful things. And now we haven't in a while. So it's a good time to finish it. So what I like about this also, some of the things that I have found, I'll show you, was this. This is nice too because we get to see exactly the way Michelangelo laid this out. And you really get, it's a map to what it is, right? So you see the way, and I'm going to read a little bit about the way it's been mapped out. Let me go to that. Hi, Lucian. How are you? It's so nice to see you here. Lucian, belated happy birthday to your Aunt Natalie. Yeah, it was yesterday, right? And we're talking about the Sistine Chapel ceiling tonight. So the way the pictorial scheme, the way the ceiling is laid out by Michelangelo is 9 scenes from the book of Genesis. Along the central section of the ceiling, Michelangelo depicted 9 scenes from the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible. The pictures are organized in 3 groups or 3 alternating large and small fields. Oh, she's very welcome. And picture panels. The first group shows God creating the heavens and the earth, right? So we see that. Hey, Charles, how are you? We're in the Sistine Chapel ceiling. So the first, when you enter, you see God creates the heavens and the earth, right? God divides light from darkness, creates the sun and the planets. God divides the water from the earth. And the second group shows God creating first man and then woman, Adam and Eve, and their disobedience of God and consequent expulsion from the Garden of Eden, where they have lived and where they walked with God. That's the middle group. God creates Adam, God creates Eve, and Adam and Eve are tempted and sent the expulsion from the garden, right? The third group of pictures shows the plight of humanity, and in particular, the family of Noah. So we get Noah and his family make a sacrifice after the flood, the great flood, and Noah is drunk and disgraced. I thought at first that a drunken disgrace. It's not a nice way to talk about Noah. He is drunk and disgraced, okay? So if they are perceived as 3 groups, then the pictures in each of the 3 units inform upon each other in the same way as usual in medieval painting in stained glass. The 3 sections, creation, downfall, and fate of humanity, appear in reverse order when read from the entrance of the chapel. However, each individual scene is painted to be viewed when looking toward the altar. Yeah. So let's take a look at these. This will be fun. So now that you see the scheme, let me find. I want you to see it from here. This is looking towards, right, the that the far end wall, the major scene there. And of course, I can't remember what it's. Oh my God! But do you see in the middle here? God creates Adam right up in the middle on top. So now we're going to look at each individual scene a little bit, and then here it is again. I mean, when you think about the painting of this, the creation of this, what went into it, is really stunning. It's really just stunning. So let's look at the images of God, right? God the Father. Here he is, and this is the detail on the right of the face of God. Yeah. And then the piece that I'm showing you is the separation of light from darkness from the first scene. And the three creation pictures show scenes from the first book. We read that. The first day of creation, God creates light and separates light from darkness. And it's interesting because in this one piece here, it's said to really be a portrait of Michelangelo and how he's painting the ceiling, right? He is on a scaffolding and he is kind of on his back or half up and how he is painting that ceiling. Yeah. Great piece. Hey, Sue, how are you? Hey, Leslie. Yep, we're at the Sistine Chapel tonight. How are you? Good to see you guys. So let's look. There's so much. The Last Judgment. Oh my God, you guys. This is looking back into the Last Judgment, right? Okay. So this is the face of God. I love this detail. I mean, there is so much detail in this work. There's so much detail. It's just amazing. And as I was looking at all of these slides, these are all incredibly fully realized paintings in and of themselves, obviously, right? So look at this kind of trompe l'oeil that's being played, that trick of the eye, right? Lucian, you see these fancy columns here? Well, they're not that fancy, right? This is all painted, These architectural elements are all painted. So you get this sense of incredible depth, right? And then there is, in the center, God creating, right? Separating light from dark, right? In the middle. And then on the sides, we're going to study those more tomorrow night, talk about them more tomorrow night. The Sibyls and the Nudi, which they're called, the naked men, and then the Sibyls. We'll take a closer look because that's days of conversation in and of itself. Yeah. Yes, I did read that, Sue. Have you read, Sue says, have you read the poem that Michelangelo wrote about his disdain of the painting? Yeah. Well, I think it was a very, very hard job. He spent 3 years and, the painters on this feed know very well what it's like to do a commissioning. And all paintings at this time were commissioned. So you are working, you are a hired hand, and you are working with the Pope and the Vatican and other people's understanding of what this should look like. So this is not an easy feat. In fact, I want to read a little bit about that. Let's see. We have the prophets with the Sibyls, the pendatives. It just goes on and on. Okay. Let me just see. Stylistic. Okay. Michelangelo was the artistic heir to the great 15th century sculptures of painters of Florence. So true. He learned his trade first under the direction of the masterly fresco painter Ghirlandaio, known for 2 great fresco cycles, and for his contribution to the cycle of paintings on the walls of the Sistine Chapel. As a student, Michelangelo studied and drew from the works of 2 most renowned Florentine fresco painters of the early Renaissance, Giotto and Masaccio. And you can certainly see that in his work. You can see their influences in the work. Let me switch to this one. This happens to be the beheading of Holofernes in this picture here. I mean, look at this work. Right? It's just extraordinary. So let me read a little bit. Masaccio's figure of Adam and Eve being expelled from the garden had a profound effect on the depiction of the nude in general, and in particular on the use of the nude figure to convey a human emotion. Helen Gardner says that In the hands of Michelangelo, the body is simply the manifestation of the soul, or a state of mind and character. Michelangelo was almost certainly influenced by the paintings of Signorelli, whose paintings, particularly the Death and Resurrection Cycle in Orvieto Cathedral, contain a great number of nudes. In Bologna, Michelangelo saw the relief sculptures of Quercia around the Porto Magna. And Michelangelo's depiction of the creation of Eve, the whole composition, the form, and the figures, and relatively conservative concept of the relationship between Eve and her creator adheres closely to this design. Other panels on the ceiling, most particularly the iconic creation of Adam, show unprecedented invention. So let's look at the creation of Adam, because it truly is. I mean, it is so talked about. It is so, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know this piece and how extraordinary it is. Yeah, that's exactly right, Lucian. They're ionic columns. Thank you for that. Very good. Very good. Well, they're Doric moving into, I see where you see the ionic. Yeah, very good. It is overwhelming in person, Leslie. It is overwhelming. You're completely enveloped by the work, and the thing that you want to do is lie down on the floor and just look up and just never move. It is unbelievable. Arlene says, as artists, we're always critical of our own work, especially working on something for so long. We often think it's not the way we wanted it to be. So true. And he was self-critical. Every good artist is. I agree with you. It's interesting because when you think about why this work was created, it has everything to do with the notion of conversion, a reaffirmation of faith, a conversion to the faith, an absolute belief in the faith. When you see the creation of Adam here, and you're not really sure how the world runs, it is a very nice thing to believe and to feel that this is all true, right? And it's a specific Rome, this time, with the spread of Christianity and such, it is very much, very, very much a considered propaganda, for lack of a better word. I don't want to be offensive in any way. It's interesting because when I walked in here, I could absolutely easily see how people could have such a reaffirmation of faith. You could make a pilgrimage or a conversion to the faith. For me, it was, interestingly enough, I was so overwhelmed by the art, that the subject matter kind of paled in comparison. But still, nonetheless, I thought that the human achievement here was miraculous. The human achievement was absolutely stunning, and that there was this idea or this concept of this faith and this love and such it all kind of worked together. It was really beautiful. I hope I'm making sense. I love this piece because you can see, as it says here, the location of the scaffolding is evident. Do you see where that is on this lunette? There's this area behind the child where I think that they're saying that you could see the scaffolding on the wall, that it was there. I think that's where it is. Yeah. I want to look at some others. It's just extraordinary. One of my favorites, my all-time favorites, this is the expulsion, right, from the Garden of Eden. Just an amazing piece. Again, in and of itself, an amazing piece. Yeah, that's exactly right, Leslie. Many people were illiterate. Same, when you think about stained glass windows, right? These stories, right? The biblical stories. This was the way that you could read the Bible without being able to read the Bible, right? So this was instructional. You're absolutely right. This is the visual Bible. and it is overwhelming, and it's slightly out of reach of you. We are here very small in this space. We are, thanks for bringing that up, Leslie. That's absolutely right. So we're standing down here very small, and we're looking up, and all of this creation, the creation of the heavens, the creation of the earth, the separation of light and dark, Adam, Eve, all of this, Jesus' ancestors, it's all there. So indeed, it is the visual understanding of the Bible, and not just it's a visual understanding of the Bible, but it's that experience of it too. It's one thing when you read the Bible, it's another to see these colors, these symbols, these people just spiraling off the ceiling and having this personal effect on you. It's some of the first media. It's better than a movie. Well, there were no movies, obviously, but it's that level of influence over us, and continues to be. It's just stunning. Here's David, right? Slaying Goliath. All the stories are here, but one of my favorites, Sue, along a little bit of along what you said about the poem. Well, look at that. But that wasn't the one I'm looking for. I'm looking for this. And then tomorrow night, I really want to go through the meaning of the Sibyls and all of these people. But first, I wanted to take an overview. This is a drawing. Lucian, look at this. This is a drawing that Michelangelo made. This is a poem, Sue, that he wrote. This is a story, a drawing he made of himself working on the Sistine Chapel. Here's what I love so much about it. Look at the guy he's drawing. Doesn't he look like a cartoon character? It's so funny. Like he's got some guy drawing with like his hair sticking up. Yeah. Yeah. So good, Sue. So right. The hand of God here. Sue says she loves the way the hand of God is, Adam's hand is higher than the hand of God. You know, it's interesting. When I was, just before I had gone to Rome to study, I want to show you, this doctor had written an article, and he said he wanted to look at the Sistine Chapel ceiling not from an art historian point of view or a historian point of view, but from a doctor's point of view. And he thought that this figure in which God is in was very much like a brain, right? And that God is, as he's reaching out to Adam, he's reaching out with intellect. He's imparting his intellect, all that brain matter. He's transferring it into that space as the fingers almost connect. And I remember one of my professors absolutely thought it was, she disagreed with it, but she loved that he came up with that idea. She loved the way he saw it, talk about looking is learning. She loved that he saw that that pink kind of fabric behind God, the image of God, that it looks like brain matter. Yeah. Yeah, right, Leslie, that the analogy of that transference was, yeah, it's amazing. And that he's transferring to Adam not just life, but intellectual life, an intellectual capacity. But knowing what we know about the Vatican, I doubt that that's true. Sue asks, doesn't it, Adam's hand higher, speak to the rise of humanism and that humans had a role within their development? I think it's true. I think what you're saying is true. I'm not sure. I'm sure that Michelangelo may probably most likely intended that. Yeah, I'm not sure that the Vatican does though. Yeah, but it's really fantastic. Look at this. The evidence of plaster laid for a day's work can be seen around the head and arm of the Inudo, Nudo is just a naked male figure. Do you see that? Do you see the lighter color plaster? And so there's still all of these signs of, the work that was going on. Yeah, the Vatican wouldn't agree. The Vatican, it wasn't the Vatican. Who was it that came up with the Roman numerals? Was it the Vatican, Jean, that came up with Roman numerals? They didn't want people to be able to decipher too much, right? Know too much about what's going on, right? Don't give them too much knowledge. We'll figure things out. Yeah. So, wait, let me see what I wanted to show you. Okay. I wanted to look at, so yeah, that I love. To see a drawing like that from Michelangelo is great, right? Yeah, okay, so Leslie just brings up a good point, and that is Dr. Beck, amazing professor from Columbia University. Love Dr. Beck. He was an advisor of mine. Dr. Beck was sued in 17 provinces in Italy. Dr. Beck believed strongly that the Sistine Chapel ceiling was overcleaned, and that, as he said, the figures look outlined like a Liechtenstein painting, and the colors were not intended. And I remember, hey, Jamie, how are you? I remember when I went to Rome, I was so excited because I was able to work with Dr. Beck, study with Dr. Beck. And I would be like, oh, I study with Dr. Beck. That was not a popular thing to say. He basically said that the people who were hired to do this were idiots. He did say that. And I agreed with him for a while. I did. And then I didn't after a while. But you bring up a good point, Leslie, and that's that kind of outline. And that's what he had problems with. He really felt that that outline was a part of an over-cleaning of the piece. He felt that besides that outline that you're talking about on the hands that makes it look animated, that colors like this, especially in this Sybil on the left, I have an image of the Sybil, I think, or maybe I was waiting till tomorrow night, that those colors, in fact, were not used at this point in the Renaissance. I do have to disagree there with him because they were. It's just that for so long, this ceiling was so dirty, with so much grime from candles, right? Centuries of candles being lit and such that it was, to clean it is shocking. It becomes shocking. I mean, I just know now from the Cathedral St. John and the Divine that cleaned the windows. Oh my God. Well, I saw the windows in a different way. We saw things on the windows we hadn't seen before. And it was, they had cleaned it after that little fire that we had on Easter 2 years ago. And just a regular cleaning of the windows really changed so much. What I wanted to read you something else about this. But yeah, Dr. Beck, he was a great professor. He was great. Okay. There was something else I wanted to read to you about the Sistine. Okay, the Sistine Chapel, here we go, is 40 meters, 134 feet long, and 46 feet wide. The ceiling rises to 44 feet above the main floor of the chapel. The vault is quite a complex design, and it is unlikely it was originally intended to have such elaborate decoration. Yeah. The chapel walls have 3 horizontal tiers with 6 windows. Let me see if I can show you a better picture while I read this. Although, I mean, this is a great picture, but more of the chapel itself. Here we go. Is that? As a painter, Jamie says, as a painter, I would say the line and is intended to read from the chapel floor and therefore look a little cartoonish close up. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right, Jamie. That's a really good point. So let's look at, so the chapel walls have three horizontal tiers to them, as you see here, right? One at the bottom, one in the middle, one at the top. And if you remember, that was how we looked at the Giotto Chapel in Padua, the Arena Chapel. It was done in that almost that same way. Um, 6 windows in the upper tier down each side. There were also two windows at each end, but these have been closed up above the altar where Michelangelo's, right there, Last Judgment was painted. Between the windows are large pendentives which support the vault, which I believe they mean are these kind of circular, semicircular, yeah. Between the pendentives are triangularly shaped arches cut into the vault above each window. Yeah, those little pieces up there. We're going to look at those at more length tomorrow because there's so much information in them all. Above the height of the pendentives, the ceiling slopes gently without much deviation from the horizontal. The first element in the scheme of painted architecture is a definition of the real architectural elements by accentuating the lines to intersect with the curving vault. And so, yeah, you have all of this the real architectural elements, and then Michelangelo has to paint kind of what they call the trompe l'oeil. Just amazing. It's really good. Animated coming to life, not animate. Oh, I get it in the digital sense. Yeah, but Leslie, you brought up a really good point because literally the professor, Dr. Beck, said he thought that it looked cartoonish. He really did. Yeah, yeah, we get what you mean. Thank you. So I really want to kind of think about looking at the Last Judgment for tomorrow night and thinking about more of just an overview tonight. And I really want to look at these Sibyls because there's the big story of the biblical story, and then it's almost all of the things that are happening along the side of that middle panel, the two sides of the middle panel, kind of energizes that middle biblical story, right? From Adam and Eve, from the separation of light and dark, all the way up to the drunkenness of Noah. But what happens around it, Michelangelo's plastic form, the Sibyls, the Anuti, all of that brings something into this that is just extraordinary. You don't see the creation of Eve. Let's see. Let me just see. Lucian said he didn't see the creation of Eve. The creation of Eve is number 5, okay? So it's right after God creates Adam. Lucian, that's really good right here. Oh, I'm pointing like we're working on a Zoom class here. If everybody could see the creation of Adam, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 from the left, 4 from the right. The creation of Eve is right in the middle, and it has the most little figures sitting on little architectural elements. Yeah, I agree, Jamie. He understood what he was creating for the viewer from the ground floor up. There is no question. He really understood this in a way that I'm not sure everybody else may have understood it. I wanted to talk about Michelangelo in this, but I have to find more information about this. I mean, creating something like this is creating this incredible story. Let me read a little bit of this. Michelangelo probably began working on the plans and drawings for the design around April 1508. The preparatory work on the ceiling was complete in late July the same year, and on the 4th of February 1510, Francesco Albertini recorded Michelangelo had decorated the upper arched part with beautiful pictures and gold. The main design was largely finished in August 1510. That's extraordinary. As Michelangelo's text suggests, from 1510 until From September 1510 until February, June, and September 1511, Michelangelo did no work on the ceiling on account of a dispute over payments for work done. I think we all know that story in our own lives. In August 1510, the Pope left Rome for the Papal States campaign to reconquer Bologna, and despite 2 visits there by Michelangelo, resolution only came months after the Pope's return to Rome in June 1511. On August 14th, 1511, on which day Pope Julius held a papal mass in the chapel, and the Pope saw the progress of the work for the first time. This was the vigil for the Assumption Day, August 15th, the patronal feast on the Sistine Chapel. The whole design was revealed to visitors on October 31st, 1512, with a formal papal mass the following day, the Feast of All Saints. Clerical use of the chapel continued throughout, exempting when the work on the scaffolding necessitated its closure, and disruption to the rites was minimized by beginning the work at the west end, furthest from the liturgical center around the altar at the east wall. Debate exists on what sequence the parts of the ceiling were painted in and over, how the scaffold that allowed the artist to reach the ceiling was arranged. There were 2 main proposals. So, the majority theory is that the ceiling's main frescoes were applied and painted in phases, with the scaffolding each time dismantled and moved to another part of the room, beginning at the chapel's west end. The first phase, including the central life of Noah, was completed in September 1509 and the scaffolding removed. Only then were the scenes visible from the floor level. The next phase, in the middle of the chapel, completed the creation of Eve and the fall and expulsion from paradise. The Sibyl and Ezekiel were also painted in this phase. Michelangelo painted the figures at a larger scale than in the previous section. This attributed to the artist's ability to effectively judge the foreshortening in composition from the ground level for the first time. That's a lot of what you're speaking about, Jamie, which is so true. So true. The figures of the third phase at the east end were using a small movable scaffolding. In this scheme, proposed by Johannes Wilde, the vault's first and second registers, right, on the sidewall, above and below the unreal, not real architectural cornice, were painted together in stages as the scaffolding moved eastwards, with a stylistic and chronological break westwards and eastwards of the creation of Eve. After the central vault, the main scaffold was replaced by a smaller contraption that allowed the painting of the lunettes, window vaults, and pendentives. This view supplanted an older view that the central vault formed the first part of the work and was completed before work began on the other parts of the plans. You know, as I'm reading this, I am seeing just in my own mind's eye, the work that has been done at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and kind of watching on a daily basis when we're doing work in the cathedral as the scaffolding moves around and workmen are going here and workmen are going there, and then it's all dismantled and brought up again, or this window's being worked on. And some days we're in the eastern part of the cathedral, the western part of the cathedral, and it sounds exactly the same way. If I were to read you the notes from the day at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine of what the the stonemasons had done or the artists had done, it would sound so much like that. It sounds so modern. Yeah. Susan says, oh, you see it now. Good, Lucian. Isn't it interesting that Eve is in the center of the ceiling? It is. She is in the center of the ceiling. Yeah. And you know what's also interesting about it? Let me see if I have her piece. It's really, she gets where Adam's piece, let's go back to Adam. Let's go back to Adam. I'm getting there, guys. Enjoy the view for a minute. Talk among yourselves. Okay. Let's see Adam's view. I want to show you Adam's view there. You see that, right? He shares it with God. He shares his view, obviously, because God is giving life to Adam. But Eve, let me see if I have Eve's view. I might have to wait to show you Eve's view tomorrow. Sorry, I may not have it here. Eve's view is a little different. It's beautiful. It really is stunning. Let me just show you something else. Look at this. Just a little bit off of what we're talking about. This is God in separating light from dark, kind of almost like coming out of this brain formation, right? Coming right off the ceiling. Yeah, I think that's so interesting when I look at it now, juxtaposed, not to change the subject, to this. I want to go back to this. Let me see if I can find Eve, because there's, let's see if we get, I know I have the view of Eve. Just give me 1 second. Or if not, I will get it for you tomorrow, because it's interesting that it's interesting that you were looking at that, Lucian, because when I first, saw the ceiling, that's the first I looked for. Where's the creation of Eve? I wanted to see that, Yeah. Yes, it left me speechless. In fact, here's what it did. It was so amazing to me that, and I had studied in Rome, that when I finally took a trip to Florence, there was this art historian called Stendhal, and he would say that when you go to Florence, it's so overwhelming. There's so much art and architecture and such in such a small place that it could easily make you overwhelmed, sick, faint, right? And then it was coined the Stendhal experience. My Stendhal experience happened in Rome. So by the time I got to Florence, it didn't. After seeing the Pietà, after seeing the Sistine Chapel ceiling, the Caravaggios, everything else, Florence, I'd had my Stendhal experience. I had fainted already. So yeah, it was absolutely overwhelming. And Jamie says, exactly, and the heightened color would have been very dramatic by candlelight. Yes, experiencing a mass there would have been quite the theatrical God rave experience. I'm rereading it because Jean tells me a lot of people can't see each other's comments on this, so I'm rereading it. I love the God rave experience. You know what's true also, Jamie? You bring up a great point as somebody, I know that you're a musician too, that music played a really important part of this experience. So you have the candlelight, right? And you have the music, you have the chanting, and you have the singing. It's in Latin. And so it's an absolute experience of the Bible, an absolute experience. It is a sensory experience, kind of like we teach, right? In our SMARTs, in our Looking is Learning program, right? We're not just teaching a fact. We're learning it with my kids are learning in that program. They not only learn the different columns, the Greek columns, they can physically tell you, they can physically show you what the Greek columns look like. They can physically show you what Greek sculpture looks like. So it's that kind of sensory that people got that was so extraordinary, so extraordinary. And I can't even imagine it with the candlelight and the music. I wish I would have been able to see that. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. We're going to look more at this tomorrow. The flood. This is the flood, right? Noah after the flood. And we're going to look at those side panels because I find them to be really extraordinary. Yeah, Leslie, candlelight. Wow, with the colors and reflections, it must have seemed to the viewers like the figures were coming to life. Yes, and that life is connected to your life. And your life is connected to that life and the afterlife. Yes, that's exactly the experience. That's exactly it. Yeah, stunning. Tremendous. Tremendous. So thank you all so much for joining me this evening. So nice to have you here. I am so lucky I get to see Lucian and all my students tomorrow in Central Park with Dion. And we're doing such a great project, you guys. I'm going to tell you all about it. I'll show it to you when the kids finish with it. Really great. And then we'll be back tomorrow night. We're going to look at the side panels of the Sistine Chapel. Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you. Thank you all. Everybody have a great evening. Bye-bye.